And we're live. So I'm very pleased to welcome Sasha K here. We've known each other for, let's see, 5 years now, 4 or 5 years.
Even more.
It was right, yeah. And recently you wrote an article on Medium, and because I'm always starving for long form content, I devoured this article, and super personal and so relevant and so touching. So you're here to talk about that article, what happened, and also you're Ukrainian, as the article that we wrote about you from Odessa, to Natasha. I remember that, and maybe we can talk also about how the situation in Ukraine is creating a lot of new trauma for a lot of people, obviously. And I'm Serbian, you're Ukrainian. Just happens to be a part of the world that is not very pro-therapy and pro-therapists. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So first, let's start global and go local. Okay. So first, let's talk about what's happening in Ukraine, because it is heartbreaking, and of course, in our attention deficit starved, people are getting the spark notes of it and are creating their memes, and this is the good guy and the bad guy. But perhaps as a Ukrainian and as someone who definitely has family there, and maybe you can talk to the real issue.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's been really difficult each day. And what happens is that at first, they were trying to just strike major military objects. And then in like 3 seconds, that became not true, because they start hitting civilians right away. And what they're doing is the propaganda. What really scares me is that the propaganda in Russia is so strong, and people so believe in the narrative that's been fed to them throughout the years. But it is horrifying. There's actually a channel that is, all the channels of Ukraine are consolidated, and they're giving one narrative of what's happening. It's a centralized Ukrainian, basically, broadcast that tells you what's happening hour to hour. And it's bad. A lot of major cities are completely destroyed, are unrecognizable. They are shooting missiles into the civilians, into the hospitals. I'm sure a lot of you heard that the maternity hospital in Mariupol was just completely bombed, and that is beyond inhumane. So there's a lot of casualties, and I know that the Ukrainian government tries not to really publicize a lot about the losses, especially in terms of the soldiers, because we don't want the enemy to know. But I do know for a fact that there's a lot of casualties on the Russian side, and the Russian soldiers are demoralized. They don't really want to fight this war. They're scared. They're unprepared. They thought they were going to go to Ukraine and take care of it in like 3 days, done. I'm sorry, you've messed with the wrong nation, because we are really, really fighting for our lives. And people are really showing heroism everywhere, on every level. Everyone is sharing whatever they have. They are projecting it into the general well-being of the country. So whatever resources people have, they're bringing them to the forefront. My brother, who is there right now, he's bringing the supplies to the frontline workers, and he's ready. He's on call to go fight. He's not trained, but he's ready to go fight. And when they call him, he's going to be ready. But in the meantime, he is bringing the supplies to the front lines, to the civilians that are left without anything, because food is running short, the medical supplies, everything, the basics. It's just the country is under a severe attack for no reason. And the whole world is really, I love how the world is really standing up for us and is on our side. I just think the most important thing is to not close your eyes on it, because this is a crisis of the whole world. This is not just a little problem in Europe. This is a world crisis, and we need to wake up, especially the Russians, before it's too late. So there's just a lot. It's overwhelming, and I cannot even imagine how the people there, I talked to a lot of my friends and relatives, but my heart bleeds for them, because this is so wrong, beyond wrong. I have no words for what's happening, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop.
Well, that's a very thank you for sharing that first, and I'm very, very sorry that your brother is there, but I'm, of course, hoping that he's safe. Um, this is a very global approach and a look at things, what's happening in Europe between countries. And that can sometimes feel abstract to people as well, because sometimes we have a I'm not there, so who cares attitude towards things. And it's very difficult to really empathize with something until it's happening, even until this day that I hear people talking about the missile strikes in Serbia in the 90s. And, it's foreign to me. I wasn't there, actually. I was in the States. So I can only empathize and understand. But then something happens in our lives that brings us maybe not to that point, but 1% closer, 2% closer to understanding what it feels like to be in a bomb shelter hugging your family, or what it feels like to have. So, what happened to you in 2015 changed your life. Uh, so, can you? Sorry, it wasn't 2015. 2015.
15. It was in 15, yes.
It wasn't. It was in 15. Yes, because you guys shot Natasha in 2014, and then this happened to you in 2015. So let's talk about that day. You shared with me privately this story about how difficult it was to just walk past that place again, and how your co-star told your hand, and I feel that. So please do let us know what happened that day.
So it was one of those days that just a regular day. I was heading back home from the gym, and I was just a few doors away from my apartment building, and then all of a sudden there was an explosion, and I really can tell from experience how explosions are so sudden. They obviously, hence the whole the physics of an explosion, right? It's sudden, but when you really experience it, it's the fastest thing that I've ever experienced in my life, and it's unlike anything else. It really, when it blows up, even right now as I'm saying it, I replay it in my mind. Um, it does feel like the end of the world because, and for some people, unfortunately, it is the end of the world, right? But then as the sound wave, as the explosion wave goes out, it can really cause huge damage to your eardrums, to eyes, like anything. Your body really can just be so damaged from it, if not destroyed. So somehow I don't know why. See, this is definitely I believe it was a divine intervention because it doesn't make any sense how I was so close and all the glass and the door flew like right over. How it didn't kill me. It's amazing. But in that moment, I was not sure if I was dead or alive. So the next thing I did was to jump into there was a car moving, and that was the only moving object that I saw at the time. And I immediately that's how I can again relate to people that have gone through something similar, and of course worse than this. That you do want to be close to other people. So I jumped into his car. He didn't stop right away, but then when he did, I got into the car and I grabbed onto him with both of my hands because I was like, I need to connect to someone else because this experience is way beyond anything that I've ever been through. So I grabbed onto him, asked him if my face was still there because I didn't know. I did not realize what was happening really. He said my face was still there, but I was bleeding. I had like all my scarf and my neck like was all covered in blood, and wasn't sure if it was my neck, what was bleeding. And then I looked in the mirror, and I realized that it was my ear lobe, which was lacerated. It was torn apart. But I was relieved because if it was my neck, I would have been in much worse shape. So initially, we were going to drive to the hospital, but literally the police, they just cordoned off the road and they did not let anyone go any further. So we had to stop the car. We had a lot of detectives and policemen. This whole area, scene of the accident, became a hot spot because when we started calling the ambulance, that just the explosion just had happened. But I'm sure there were a lot of calls that were coming in, so the area got flooded with fire engines and ambulances, and the huge crowd started forming. I got out of the car. I had to move because that's one thing that it really helps in really super stressful situations. You do need to walk, and for me, I couldn't sit. I had to walk, so I started making circles around the car, and then eventually we were taken to the fire truck, which was an ambulance, and they checked us. They offered to give some oxygen, but I think I breathed a little bit, but I was later, I was fine. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have brain damage, because that's one thing after it had happened, and I mentioned it in the article. I did wonder, can I still act? Because for me, and that's what made me realize that this is a life calling for me to be an artist, to express myself artistically, and that's so important for me. And that was the first thought that I had after having been in this uh, incident. So it showed me how committed I am to this. So that was the thought that was still running through my head. Like, can I still be, am I functional? Am I normal? Because that was a fear later on too. Don't mean to like jump too fast, but that's one thing that I was really worried about, that I had to address, is like, will I be able to have a normal life? Because if I had brain damage, my life would have been very different. So that was one thing that I had to figure out. They assured me that it was not brain damage, because I could speak my native language, which was good. But they still had to take care of my earlobe, which was completely smashed. So I had to be taken to the ER. So they loaded me up with other victims, and one of the guys had to be carried in the stretchers, because he was inside. See, at the moment, I didn't even realize what happened until later. It all, of course, it made sense that it was inside of the building. The explosion came from the basement, and 2 people died, and their bodies were burned so badly that it took them days to actually find them. So
Yeah.
it was a truly tragic event. So we all went to the, to the ER, and everybody got the help they needed. They stitched up my ear. They had to perform a reconstructive surgery to make sure they stitched it together, had to trim it a little bit, but the plastic surgeon was really wonderful. And then I had glass in my hair that my then roommate helped me pick out. But I was grateful to still have all my parts of my body intact. I was really amazed at how I survived. It still didn't feel real to me. I really do believe that day it was before and after the explosion. And it's interesting how now there's before and after the war for me, because the day that the war started in Ukraine, nothing is the same again. So those huge events really affect us so greatly that you're never the same. So like you said earlier, right, those events really bring you closer to others that have experienced this, to, of course, various degrees. Obviously, different experiences would process things differently, but I think it's somewhat of a community of people that know what it feels like to experience those things.
I was just talking with my friend Alexandra about this just yesterday, about how there's this sort of hidden thing in people who've overcome things, that it becomes immediately relatable. And I was so amazed. One of the most amazing things about reading your article was listening to what had happened to you at the time. By the way, I had no idea when I interviewed you for Pensari Films in 2016 about your film, which we can talk about a little bit, about what a magnificent say comeback story that was for you, being nominated for Canadian Screen Award, and how well received that film was and how beautiful it was. But it was so amazing to me that we connected at that time, and we had just literally both a year prior been at the exact same crossroad, and neither I told you nor you told me. We were both processing, and you've always, I've interviewed so many people. You've always been like really one of the people that really stuck out in my mind for whatever reason, and that was probably the reason, because there was a subconscious understanding, So there are probably people out there who are going through one form or another of something. Okay, now it may not be what you went through. It may not be an explosion, a gas explosion, a gas leak. It may not be a vase falling on their head like it was for me. And it may not be a war that is happening in Ukraine. But one thing I've realized, everyone has trauma. Every single person on this planet has trauma, and ironically, and this is, so many things in life are paradoxes, and this is one of the biggest paradoxes, is that sometimes an event like this can actually help you overcome trauma as well. It can create new trauma, it can also overcome new trauma. And I'll share, with those watching and also with you, that one of the three ways to overcome trauma that I've come across are excessive repetition, right? Repeating over and over and over again to undo something, through mirror work, etc. If you've been convinced your whole life that you're ugly and worthless, perhaps going in front of a mirror every morning and telling yourself that you're worthwhile 100 times will do some work for you. Hypnotherapy. But the ironic third one is trauma. Trauma helps you overcome trauma. A traumatic event can shift your life in perspective, because the way the mind works is that it's designed to keep us safe and comfortable. Whatever has happened in the previous, time has kept us alive. And so walking down every single day, and so there's some hope out there for people who are going through things, is that the next thing you go through, like whatever you're going through, there's a crescendo and a moment at which things will snap into place, and you'll hit something. So talk about that moment for you, because I'm sure there's almost like a division. You pre-explosion, you post-explosion. You're not the same person anymore. So talk about that person. There's actually a question here that I think really relates to this. It's from Mika. What's a piece of advice you'd give to yourself if you go back and meet yourself in 2015? Yeah. So new Sasha, old Sasha, have a conversation. What do you say?
Okay, so by the way, thank you for the question. Mika, thank you. Let me answer it first, and then I'll address what you said later.
Yeah.
So advice would be definitely brace yourself. Brace yourself, because you will be tried, but you will only be tried as much as you can withstand. It is your path. And again, I make a disclaimer saying that those who overcome trauma, those that are lucky to stay alive, because a lot of people don't come out of this on the other side, on this side, right? They actually, they die. So what if you're already fortunate to survive these things? If you don't take a lesson out of it, then it's really difficult, right? You kind of have to. It's your, in a way, human obligation to do that. So I would say to myself, yeah, know that it shall pass, and what you're going to go through is going to make you so much stronger. Because really, I'm seeing more and more reasons as to why it happened. When it just happened, I had no idea. I was like, I didn't walk around saying why it happened. I was just shocked that it had happened. And all I could see in the moment was how scary it is to have a panic attack, or what anxiety is, because I never experienced it growing up or ever, right? Like, I was very fortunate to not have those issues and not even be aware that those issues really, a lot of people are tormented by them because of various reasons. So I was introduced into that headspace in a way, right? So I think, like what you said earlier about trauma really helping you overcome trauma, that is 100% right. It's like almost like working out your trauma muscle, because the trauma keeps growing. I do feel like it was the trauma of explosion, then the trauma of COVID, the isolation. I spent most of it by myself in my apartment, and I've learned really to be by myself. So I feel like I've grown through it. And then now the trauma of war in my beloved homeland, that is wreaking havoc onto so many innocent women and children, that is just beyond, it's incomprehensible, right? So I feel like those levels of trauma really prepare you for something, and then you realize, you know what, I'm all in. I'm gonna withstand, and I'm gonna do whatever I can from my end to help people, because I can relate to them so much more. Again, I haven't been through what they've been through, but from my perspective, I can at least have the glimpse into their suffering. And I'm honored to have had that, because you know what, if it happened, it better have happened for a reason. And then in your mind, that makes it helpful, makes it a tool, makes it a weapon instead of a weapon inflicted on you, right? It's your weapon. You turn it around. It's like you're being stabbed, you take the knife, you turn it around, and you're ready to defend yourself. So that's how I see turning trauma around, because you kind of have to do it to protect yourself, to survive mentally and physically.
I think you've hit on something here which is really, really relevant, which is embrace it and really learn to love it. I think too many people, they stop at just accepting. No, you don't accept something happens. You love it because you grew from it, you learned from it, and now you can do something new for people out there. This world is so full of people who stop short, in my opinion. And I'm not judging people who stop short, because there are people who've gone through outrageous things, crazy things in their lives, and they got beaten down by it and they just stopped pushing. But let this be a hopeful panel for those people out there. You now have a unique perspective to raise the level of empathy, as called empathy potential in a human being, that you can now, if you can just withstand that and move through it, that you will be armed with the perspective to relate to people who need you. People who, if there were more people like that, then perhaps your pathway through overcoming would not have been so lonely, if that makes sense, right? So I think that this is such a fantastic thing that you really sound, one of the things I noticed, and we will, of course, after this, we'll link the article in the comment section or in the description, so that everyone can just go and read this beautiful story that you've written about what happened to you. I think one of the things that I realized, well, I was like, wow, she's really done some work. She's really done some work here, because you sound like someone who's really embracing it. So let's talk about art, because you're a fantastic actress. If I haven't shared that with you yet, you really are. And I was so floored when I watched your performance with Natasha, and that was 5 years ago, and knowing you, and you must have grown so much since that time. I can't please send me more of your films to watch. You're unbelievable. So please do talk about this how art has helped you as a therapeutic tool to work through some of these things.
Thank you. Excellent question, and thank you so much for the compliment. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Of course.
I live for art. So yes, you hit the nail on the head when you said about you have to open up about it. You have to talk about it, and you cannot, because if you bottle it up, really, it does hurt you from the inside in many subconscious ways. So, but letting it out is scary, I have to say, because it's vulnerability. But once you do, even my story, I was scared to really get so vulnerable until I've written the article and really opened up. It's like, here's everything, because it is very personal. But once you do that, there's the level of this honesty and vulnerability in your art. And I feel like doing that, because good art, great art, is vulnerable. It's honest, it's raw, it's unapologetically just yourself, no filter, right? So once you really get it out there, what it does is that it's extremely therapeutic to just let it go. It also encourages other people to open up, because I was really amazed at how quite a few people shared with me their trauma that I had no idea they have been through. So the stories that amplify those experiences really encourage others to acknowledge it, let it out, and live with it. It's like a rock that I always love this analogy is trauma or tragedy is a rock that you carry in your pocket, and it's always going to be there, but you're going to learn to live with it. And in my opinion, you kind of have to use it. And art is really something that I've always loved art, but for me, it became a necessity because it's another outlet. It's another channel that you can put out your pain and your suffering through, and it just makes it so much better. It's recycling, right? It's like the whole concept of my article is how I compare this with the creation of the universe, right? How supernovas, right? Huge explosions, they create the interstellar medium for the creation of new life. Same with us, our explosions in our lives, any kind of explosions, create material for the creation of the new. So in order to really create as an artist, I'm not saying you have to suffer. Some people Some artists are creating from a happy place, which is great. I'm really trying to get there as well, right? Like to really project that happiness. I think it's another channel. But really creating from the place of pain is kind of necessary. It's kind of your duty. Painting is another medium that really helps because I never went to like an art school. For me, painting, I just kind of like it came out of me. It was something that my mom encouraged me to make a painting about it. Because she saw me in agony and she's like, all right, you love art, go paint. And I did. And I remember it being really kind of like, I put everything that I had in my mind onto the canvas. And I remember feeling this really satisfying feeling of, all right, that I've expressed that and it communicated something. And excuse me, and if somebody relates to that and if somebody can see what I put into it energetically, then I've made a connection. I've made a friend who knows how it feels. So it becomes a community. So I think art, even if some people are not even artistic, I think it's important to have an outlet if you're going through trauma. Any kind of outlet. It could be sports, it could be cooking. Really, art is everything. Art is not defined by one thing, as you guys know, right? I mean, we're all artists on one level or another. So if you get in touch with your creative side, it's almost like we become channels for that. Like with my painting, right? Like one of the paintings that I've made, I had no idea what I was making, but I was just like my hand, I was just channeling something. And same actually with acting. A lot of times I do all the prep that I can for my character work, and then all of a sudden something takes over me. Like, for example, Natasha was part of it. I channeled something, and you just have to be ready. You have to get your, tools all set. You have to be open and just let it move through you. The art and whatever it is that you're here to say or to do in this world, you're going to be this vessel to channel it out into the world, and whatever messages that you're supposed to give to people are going to come through you, and they might cost you suffering or even sometimes your life. Like right now, a lot of soldiers are giving their lives for the freedom of our country. It's everybody has their different path, and embracing your path as either an artist or anybody is crucial. So yeah.
We have another question here. Beautifully put, by the way. Thank you for sharing your story. What made you continue on strong after an event that will crumble many others? From Boyana.
Buena. Yes, thank you for your question, and thank you for listening and listening to my story. What encouraged me to go on strong? I just think that I realized that this is not the end of my story here. And if I continue down that really dark place of anxiety and fear, I'm just not gonna, my light is just gonna go off. And I knew that there was a greater reason for me to go through this. And yeah, there were there were a lot of dark moments, but I had to choose the light because I knew that all that is a spiral, that the spiral it into the darkness and hopelessness, and especially with mental things, right? Like that's how it feels when you're having a panic attack. You're like just falling through something that never ends. But I think it's just in my nature, to be honest, to always see the bright side, and this altered my nature. I believe that it did, in terms of it just put on another layer of armor or something rather, but it as an essence of me, it didn't change. Like the essence of me never changed. Maybe like my nature changed in terms of like being stronger, but who I am is I am the person that overcomes whatever it is that is going my way. So it was a personal decision to be, you know what, I'm not going to let it break me. I'm going to go through this. And I'm still, recovering. And I feel like it's a lifelong journey, but we have to keep going, right? If we stop, that's it, right? We got to keep moving because it's going to be a decline if we don't. We can never just like plateau. We have to climb, even if it's half an inch every day. It's still progress that we have to make every day for ourselves, really. Yeah.
At the end of it, we talk about countries going to war, we talk about nations being bombed, but most of these issues can be usually traced back to one human being who didn't go to therapy when they should have.
Yeah.
and it's shocking to me just how consistently this has been the case when I listen to dictators and world leaders who have this sort of very authoritarian, aggressive, approach to things. Is that when you listen to them talk, you can really tell that they are not very resolved people, that they themselves are working through a lot of trauma, and perhaps it may be weird for some people to look at these people in a new light because they are the bad guys, but maybe just look at it as a child who was left alone to cry too long and never really sought the social care. So one of the things I think that we, you, I, and others who have gone through the process of going to therapists, seeking help, is to become advocates for this in a not pushy way. Obviously, people need to find therapy when it's good for them. I think that's a really important part of this. And there are a lot of people out there who are pushed into therapy through family pressures. And if you're someone who's listening out there, or someone who listens afterwards, and you're thinking of someone in your life who's going through some stuff, don't bully them into therapy. It will not work for them until they are ready for it. But once the pot boils, then as long as there's not a social construct in which therapy is so frowned upon, so taboo, and so inaccessible, either financially or just socially inaccessible. There just aren't a lot of therapists in countries where therapy is taboo. You're sharing something personal. I didn't want to make this about myself at all, but one of the things that I was just talking with my uncle about just a few months ago, we were talking about how my father passed away and his mental health issues. When right before he passed away, my father passed away in 2001, and he was like, man, if only this mental health stuff had happened in the 80s, we might have caught this. We might have figured out what he was going through. And I think that's really important. We have a question here. Yeah.
Which language is this in?
This is definitely in Serbian.
Okay, do you mind? I caught some of the words, but
we're gonna save this question for a little bit later. Okay, so one of the things I think, do you think that the biggest, what do you think that in Ukraine, what can be done now to help the people who are going through what they're going through naturally?
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just in terms of what can people here do, apart from we will obviously talk about the paintings that you're doing and the work that you're doing and links that people can go, but in terms of actually supporting people, maybe even people who are here, what's one thing that you wish, maybe, because I'm sure when this happened, everyone who knows you as Ukrainian, especially in the United States and Canada, where everything is about where you're from, so everyone associates you as that's the Ukrainian girl, right? So I'm sure that you've just been poured out with questions about what's going on and how you're feeling. What's one thing you wish more people knew when they were reaching out to you?
Great question. I have to say already people are very well informed here. I mean, this one message would be mostly, I think Canadians and Americans are way ahead of the game in terms of really knowing what's happening, and they do educate themselves, and they have an enormous amount of compassion, and they've been helping emotional support, financial support, all these things. They've been supplies, really, they've been incredible. Again, this could be the whole different program about this, but like you were saying before about changing things from ground up. And I think changing someone's opinion, changing someone's point of view is extremely hard. And a lot of times people do change like that because of some traumatic event. There's a lot of people in Russia, there's a lot of people that are protesting there, and I'm so grateful to them. They're awake. But there's a lot of people that are asleep. So one thing, and it's hard, I was speaking to my cousin who lives there, and she's ethnically Ukrainian, and I showed her the footage, I showed her a lot of pictures, but she's so brainwashed that I was amazed at. Like, I literally spent the day, like, really, like, are you not seeing? And she's like, yeah, I understand I'm against the war. But then she would try to find little things that she's been brainwashed into thinking to, like, try to sneak it in there. It's like, do you not understand this is not about that? Okay. You don't just go and kill women and children like this. Like, your government, you're living under a dictatorship. Wake up. So here's one thing I feel like I just really wish for the Russian people to really wake up and to do. I know it's extremely scary there because of, like, how the government is, but that's one thing that they just need to wake up and open their eyes to, because they don't really realize how bad it is. So for them to really acknowledge, like, some of the people have texted me and they said, I'm so ashamed of my country and what's happening. I wish I just got more of that from my Russian speaking friends who are a lot of them are just complaining that the prices are going up or the sanctions. I'm like, good, gotta quadruple them. Are you kidding me? Like, this is a matter of life and death. I understand. Listen, I understand, but at the same time, this is serious. This is affecting everybody. So that's one thing I wish people knew more about. But otherwise, again, I'm really grateful for everyone who's reaching out and who's helping, because the world is really coming together in this regard.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, when you come over here as an Eastern European immigrant, right, just being an outsider in North America, you often gravitate towards people who are loosely from where you're from. For instance, I have a lot of Bulgarian friends, a lot of Ukrainian friends, a lot of Russian friends, a lot of Belarusian friends. And our festival itself, you know, so much of our team has been from Serbia, Russia, you know, a lot of our audience members are from Ukraine, you know, and we've always smiled when we met each other. There's always this quiet acknowledgement, almost a warmer embrace, because we have funny last names, yourself excluded, Gordon, but, you know, like, yeah,
Well,
but
I mean, I have another last name.
I know. I know.
That's why it makes it easier for people.
Well, that's exactly it. But, you know, here's sort of the question. So I was looking at this the other day about shame, you know, and how a lot of people do feel shame for the government. But then there's an alternate perspective and another side of this, which is that shame always seeks punishment for oneself, you know? And I don't think it's productive, personally. My personal take is that you can condemn something, but then act on it. Don't just sit there and feel terrible and shitty about it, you know? Because there's a lot of people out there, you know, and I think that it's important. Just, you know, we're not a political festival. We're obviously, like, trying to be a humanistic festival, and we're talking about all people. And, you know, I think it's very, very important here to realize how extremists, people who think extremists, I'm not talking terrorists, but I'm talking extremists, are even born. They're born as the other. Every single human being in this world who was ever taught to hate somebody, I can guarantee you at some point was taught that the person they're being taught to hate hates them. Okay? It's very easy to brainwash people in Afghanistan in 2002 against the United States. Why? Open the news. These people hate you, right?
Yes.
So you have to hate them first, right? So if there is no hate, then there's nothing to reciprocate. And then the person who's being brainwashed looks at it and says, why should I hate them? They're not doing anything to me, right? So what I worry about is escalation when it comes to something like this, right? Socially speaking, right now, I see both sides of it. I have friends, Annika, if you're watching, you know, I have so many Ukrainian friends that my heart really goes out to, Eliza, yourself, you know, and man, watching their stories every single day and just trying to feel 1% of what they're going through, and my heart breaks for them. And it's very easy in that moment to just really start to become very angry at whoever the hell is causing all of this. Flip side of it, I have a lot of friends who are also Russian. As an impartial person who's from neither country, also have a lot of friends who are Russian who are feeling a lot of shame right now and a lot of anger. But without an outlet, that anger is now being directed at themselves. But it's frustrated because they don't have a direct line to Putin. They can't call him and say, stop doing this. So they just sit there and they're almost like afraid of being asked. You know, they're like dreading this moment that somebody's going to message them and be like, hey, don't you hate your government and what they're doing? Because if you don't, I'm not going to be your friend anymore because you're the other. I personally think that events like this for people who are uninformed become outlets for hatred. Okay, just like I think Harvey Weinstein became an outlet for hatred. There's a lot of pissed off people in this world, and they're just looking for the next thing to be pissed off at, right? You know. So I think it's really important. So if there is a Russian person out there, who's supporting you, what do you want to say to them?
Okay, great question. And yeah, hatred and anger is going to eat you up if you don't direct it at something. That's why I
Mhm.
feel like art is important, that you have an outlet. Um, at at your own, because I know how serious it is there and how people are getting sentences for even voicing their opinion. But I do think it is up to the Russian people to say something. Okay, maybe like if 10 people come out, they're going to be arrested. But if the whole country really realizes that their government is really cruel and insane, then some
Hmm.
change can happen. I know it's hard to have change overnight, but I would say if somebody who is willing to really listen, for them to first of all just check their facts, do their research, just turn off the TV because it is being controlled by the government, and really
Where
think.
can they get facts that are not painted politically? They're like, is there a news site that you think is really giving the facts correctly?
Yes, US TV now is actually showing a Ukrainian channel that is just you can just turn off the volume if you think, if you're afraid that this is gonna just tell you anything that you don't want to hear. Just look at the images. Images do not lie. Those reporters are risking their lives by taking pictures and videos of what's happening. And if they really, because they're being told, oh, they're only bombing the military objects. No, they're not. They're killing women and children. So if you just, yeah, go. There are still sources. I know Russia is being shut down, but don't let yourself be cornered and don't live in the darkness. Just go to alternative. I'll share some links at the end of where you can go. Yeah, just try to not like think like that. And I know it's hard to say, oh, don't think that way, because if you're brainwashed, but really think for yourself. Really try to open your eyes, and if you want to know the truth of what's going on, share it with your friends. If you cannot go protest because you're a mother, or if you have kids, if you're afraid, don't. But if you really feel it in you to go, you can really be making a huge difference. Stand up for what's right, and it's hard and it's scary. It's scary to be the first one, it's scary to be in the minority. But if the whole country realized that this is not okay, because they're going down the drains too, they're taking themselves, they're really screwing themselves right now.
Can I
So
ask you a
try.
personal question? Is there a sense of survivor's guilt with you right now?
Absolutely. The one thing about me being here, I've immigrated here a long time ago, and what's happening right now, my brother, like my whole family's there. My mom lives here, but everyone else is there. My uncle, my grandmothers are deceased, but I have more distant family. One of my relatives and cousin and his are in Kharkiv with his family. Absolutely, because physically I'm here, but ever since the war started, my heart and my soul are there, and I feel so much in pain and agony. And yeah, of course, I think about it a lot actually. Why am I here and not there? I know. I immigrated a long time ago, but I'm so Ukrainian, and I feel like all of us Ukrainians feel this sense of national pride and patriotism that we never felt before. I feel like we've all been activated ever since this happened. There are arguments, of course, between everybody or anybody, and we, like, who doesn't have arguments, right? America is divided, like Ukraine was divided, but this really brought us so together, so close to each other, that it doesn't matter. We leave our little differences behind in order to come together for the greater good. So that's what I'm really hoping for the world, to really come together against the greater enemy who is really threatening all of us. And that's been happening a lot. And I want for it to continue happening. I really want all of us to come together. And like you said, yeah, it shouldn't be us against them. It should be people fighting for what's right, what's humane, and really shutting, like, just fighting against what's wrong, standing up for what's wrong.
During the Holocaust, I'm pretty sure like the algorithm does not like me saying that word, but during the Holocaust, there were a lot of Jewish people who were, of course, in the United States, and they probably felt a little bit of what you're going through right now. Probably something very similar of we left. This is something happening to our people. There's connection there, but I will say to people, learn from history, lest you know, repeat the lessons of, you know, that are lost. And one of the things that they were able to do is they were able to change the United States perspective on World War II. So, in a small way, I think that, you know, a lot of Ukrainian people who are here were maybe feeling the sense of, oh, why am I not there? Well, okay, but why are you here? Is a better question, I think, is maybe because here, you know, if you were in a bomb shelter right now, we could not be having this conversation. If we're not having this conversation, maybe 200, 300, 400 people don't hear your story, and who knows what they will tell. So I think that I hope in some period of time that you will not feel survivor's guilt. That's my hope for you, and that instead you will feel, I guess, I don't know what the word is, but a purpose and a renewed purpose. And I, you know, because you can help, you can absolutely help, and you are helping. So, you know, on that note, let's talk about your paintings and the links, because that's what you're able to do from here. So you had mentioned that you're doing some paintings, and some percentage of the proceeds for some of those paintings will actually be going towards helping the victims in Ukraine. Tell us about it.
Yes, so I had an art exhibition, right? So I've been planning it for a long time at a gallery with displaying 6 works of my paintings, and I had a performance with almost each one of them, which was a special performance. Either it was a dance, I had a musical performance by a friend of mine. We did a theatrical scene that we've written with some artists that we worked on, and we had a meditation. So we really had a bit of an off-Broadway show with multiple different multimedia performances that we've been planning. And then the night before, the war strikes, and I was just in shock. So I wasn't even going to go through with that. But then I decided, you know what? Ukrainian people are strong, and we'll do it for them. And that's something that I think it's important to create art in the times like this, because it's really going to uplift someone. So that's one thing that I'm continuing to do. I made a painting for when I go to those meetings on Times Square. You know, I have this one. I don't know. Well, you know, the Russian warship go. You know, that one.
Mhm.
So I have that sign. You know, so I feel like it's important to keep making art about the times that we're in. So I'm doing it. Also, the project of wave motion is something that I've started back in August. It's a very specialized painting style when I basically make an essence portrait of a person. I've made a bunch for my friends whom I know really well, and I've made some for people that I don't know. But what I do is I speak to them, I tune into their energy, who they are as a person. They share with me their hopes and dreams. It's a short conversation, but I really get straight to what is important for them in life. And
Mhm.
I ask some questions. So as a result, we get a background, which is corresponding to who they are as a person. And then they give me a phrase. It could be something that they are and they're very proud of, right? Like for me right now, I would make one for myself saying, I am Ukrainian because I'm proud to be Ukrainian and always have been and always will be. And you say it, you record it. I record it for them with passion. They say it with a meaning. Or it could be something that they want to project. So, for example, they're dreaming of becoming a musician, right? So they really
Mhm.
say it with a meaning. It could be a word or it could be a sentence, right? I record it, I capture it, so it becomes a sound wave that I later
Mhm.
paint. It's all painting with just a background, and I can I can bring one for you. I can show you, or I can send you the links to them. So I made this for people, custom make them for people. I have some paintings from the exhibit too that are for sale, and then I'm gonna donate really most of it to Ukraine, because I think it would be just an honor to be able to contribute to my country by doing something that I'm here to do, by making art. So that's definitely one outlet. So either wave motion, I can make it for you personally, or there are some paintings that are already ready to go, ready to be shipped, or wherever you are. And
Awesome.
fundraising as well. Universal Aid for Children is the organization that my mom has worked for 23 years, and she's in the
Mhm.
U.S. now, but she operates and directs all the funds and my brother who is there, he's one of the volunteers who remained in Odessa, who's distributing the help, and we have associates that are helping as well. So that's another way, and it's on my Facebook. The fundraiser is up there, so you can donate if you would like that. Just really trying to keep the spirits up of those people. Talk to them, talk to Ukrainian friends there, tell them everything's going to be okay, whatever they need. Help is coming and rebuilding is coming. That's the biggest thing. I think one part right now we have to focus on really getting them the help they need. But then once it's over and once we win, which we will very soon, we need to think about those things of, like you mentioned, the recovery from the trauma, incredible amounts of trauma that they're going to be experiencing, and rebuilding the country, building a better Ukraine. So it's only the beginning of reparations that the world is going to have to, help Ukraine with, and we will, because there's no other way.
Okay, and if people are interested in Sasha's paintings or getting in touch with Sasha, they can get in touch with her on Instagram or on Facebook and send her a message. We have a bunch of questions here which are not in English and are not in Serbian and are not in Ukrainian. The Serbian question earlier was actually about confronting evil. It was more a comment than a question. Translation is, it's good to have these conversations as opposed to effectively dodging them and ignoring them. Very important. We do have time. We have 2 minutes left. We have time for this question. If you can tackle it in 2 minutes. You're so inspiring. Thank you. Do you think having experienced what you did unlocked something to make you a better artist?
And yes, thank you for that. And absolutely, yes. It's almost like you go deeper as an artist. You think, right? You think you've reached a level, and then all of a sudden, boom. There's really no limit. You have to become a better artist every day, and experiences like this really do either make you or break you. So absolutely, I feel like it made me a better artist, 100%. Yeah.
I think so much of art is drawing on experience, and I can't, so here's something. It's like let's just end this on a very inspirational note, because this has been a very heavy topic naturally. There's an old quote: "If you're going through hell, keep going. Why would you stop in hell?" That's a great one, and this sort of extends in the same thing, which is when things happen to you, that anything that happens to you that you deem to be bad, right? Anything like either it's what happened with you and that explosion, it's what happened to me with the vase falling on my head and nearly ending my life. You think in that moment, what will happen? I have this 39 stitches across my head. You had your ear, blown off, just crazy, right? But in that moment, don't forget to say thank you. Don't forget to say thank you to that thing that you hate so much in that moment, because one day, deep down, you'll realize that it made you a better person. So to anyone out there who's experiencing hell right now, learn to love it. Whatever is happening to you, a breakup, and this is not judgment, right? Like sometimes we enter trauma Olympics. People are like, oh yeah, well, you're going through a breakup. I'm going through, a divorce. That's so much worse than your trauma. No, trauma is relative. And some people, a breakup will end their life effectively because they will commit suicide, and some people they can lose their spouse to death and they will be fine. So it's really to each their own, but helping people, not judging people, and push through and see the silver lining, and you'll be okay. You'll be good. You'll be great. And if Sasha's, if you need an example, look at Sasha right now, and we will link that article down below, and I hope people will check it out. If if you're wanting to, just Google Sasha K or Medium and go check it out right now. Actually, you'll see it as the first one there on her profile. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for talking with us. Penance is so happy to have you, and we're all about story over everything. And this is a story we really, really wanted to talk to you about. So thank you for being so honest.
Thank you. You're incredible. Thank you so much for letting me.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.